Hey, and welcome to episode 13 of Being High with Dualistic Unity. Today I'm not even gonna spend very much time on this intro. We have an incredible guest. His name's Rama Mayo. He's been involved in art, fashion, cannabis, music, a lot of different things. He's full of enthusiasm, has loads and loads of faith in himself, and is just a really fun guy to have a conversation with.
Yeah, this episode is a perfect example of how when you just let go and be yourself, you will immediately start to resonate towards people that are doing exactly the same thing. I don't think Rama could have been a more appropriate guest for this podcast, not just being high in terms of the series, but dualistic unity as a whole. He was very much a physical embodiment of everything that we talk about in terms of just letting go and having the faith in yourself to actually have an authentic ripple over the world and everybody that you interact with. This was a genuine joy. Enjoy the episode. Rama, I really want to start this by just saying thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed perusing your website and a lot of what you've been involved with. What I really enjoyed was that you've been involved with cannabis, music, art, culture, expression as a whole. And from that, you have this mentality of enthusiasm, a willingness to fail, and a view of leadership that includes empowering others without being seen doing so, without the
Sure,
need to be
sure,
front and
sure.
center.
Like the
I was
best way
wondering if you could tell
anyone.
us a
Yeah,
little bit about how you came to where you are.
yeah. That's like the best way anyone described me ever, kind of, I feel. So thank you for that. Yeah. I mean, it really depends on how you want to look at it, right? Like I grew up in Massachusetts in like between Worcester and Boston, so like 45 minutes west of Boston, essentially, and super poor, Section 8 housing, like single mom, never met my dad. My mom's the best, talk to her like a couple times a week still. And she was working like a job to just have money to do, keep us alive, basically, So with that, I learned a ton of stuff, Mr. Miyagi style, that I didn't know I was learning, right? So I think that's like on the business level, but also more on like the personal level, and then I had a neighbor, Casey O'Gorman, who passed away from a drug overdose when I was in high school. And but back then, when we were kids, he was a little bit older. He had a skateboard, and he, was skating around, and his friends were a little older, and they were skating. So that's really like I kind of attribute like most of my stuff to skateboarding, kind of today. And then skateboarding, the soundtracks to the skateboard videos were like a lot of it was punk rock. So then it was like, oh, who's this band? And then I would started going when I went to high school. I started going to like punk shows, and I got to concerts as well. Like I went to Aerosmith with my mom or whatever, but sitting like 300 rows back with this crazy pyrotechnics and whatever was so different than like standing like near the stage or even getting pushed up onto it because like there's no barrier. And like it was like then you walk around and like there's a kid selling zines or a girl selling like vegan cookies or like someone with like a little record distro. And the bands were the sound guys or the techs. It was like very like attainable. So I had some friends in high school. Dickie Cummings basically is his name, real name, brother Ben Cummings. And they Ben Dickie was a singer of a band. I was taking school for like mechanical engineering and drafting. He was like a grade above me in that, and he was a singer. And they're like, come to the shows. And then from there, we were like talking, and he's like, well, we could like do our own shows, like let's do our own things. So when I went to Aerosmith, I wasn't like I could book a concert like this, but you went to the punk show, and it's like kind of let's do more of these. So I just started doing shows with him around New England, and I loved it. But again, this is before the internet, right? This is before cell phones. So when we're doing shows, there's like a little thing called a dialer. I don't know if you guys know it. It's like a little black box, like half the size of this, a little thicker, and it would mimic the sound of a quarter going into a payphone. So when I would book a show, I'd go like during high school, I would go to the payphone, like for bathroom break or whatever. I'd go to the payphone, I'd dial some person, and they would be like, deposit 200 or $2.50, please. And you'd be like, doo 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 doo, and like make these little things to like mimic the sound of a quarter. And those shows became big, and it was like paper flyers, and again, pre-internet. So that started doing really well. And I had another friend named Kendra Eddy, and she was like, we should do another one of these, but a big one. So when I was 15, we organized a thing called New Bedford Fest. It's online still now. It's crazy. Like there's thousands of people that I saw. I had a call with someone the other day, an amazing designer named Tyler. And he was like, dude, New Bedford Fest. Like, oh my God. Like I remember this. And this is 30 years ago. It was 30 years ago this past January. We did it. My mom dropped me off at the venue. We booked it on a payphone. It was paper flyers, but yet people flew in from all over the world for this, because it was a tight-knit community of like punk music, so it would like these advocates, they're not just fans, like they're promoters of the show. They bring their friends, I'm getting chills, and that was like the big thing. And then from there was a band essentially that was amazing called Cast Iron Hike, local band, didn't have a record deal. And my partner Dickie and I were like, we should take all of our show money and spend it putting this band in the studio and start a record label. So we started that, and that was called Big Wheel Recreation. I did it with Dickie for the first record, then he dropped off. I went to college and I did it by myself for 12 years, and I did it. I ended up putting out like 70 records under that label, and the first Jimmy Eat World, At the Drive-In, Hives records. And a bunch of other Joanna Newsom's first record with her old band, and a bunch of other really cool stuff. And then I started working with some other labels and some other artists, and started managing some stuff. And I managed a band called The Explosion, and we signed to Virgin Records. I managed a band called Say Anything, who are doing their big anniversary tour coming up this summer. I'm excited to go check it out. I created the album Is a Real Boy with them, which is like their big breakout record. Max was in high school at the time, sleeping on my couch when we made it. I think he just graduated actually. We did All American Rejects, and then I was doing a band called Piebald at the time. And then the music industry was really in a weird spot. My intern said like, no one's, we're never going to buy music again. And my distributor was like, no one's ever going to stop going to record stores. So when the kids were like, we're never going back, and the old dudes in suits are like, don't worry, it's fine. I was like, so I got out of the music stuff essentially. And then I started, didn't know what to do. I've never had a job before or anything like that. Like never had a resume. So I started, I essentially went to San Francisco for the weekend and stayed for 3 years. And a friend of mine, John LaCroix, shout out John, was in some of the bands, and then was a really accomplished creative director in the mainstream world, and doing sports. And we started a little agency there. Kind of just took what I learned from music, and applied it to some non-music stuff, skateboarding, fashion, whatever. And then moved to back to LA, and just started doing essentially agency work with a mentor of mine named Dr. Romanelli, Darren. And we signed to G-Pen, the weed vaporizer, G-Pen. And that was like 12 or 13 years ago. And then this all comes back around, because the same thing I got from like Chris from G-Pen, or like Task from Highly Educated, or these like early brands we started working with and hanging out with, was the exact same feeling I got from like Jimmy Eat World. So I was like, wow, like Chris is going to be this gigantic thing. I could see it. You can't download weed, right? So it's like, we're safe there. And, it's going to go from like punk rock or skateboarding was legal, and now it's in the Olympics. So I kind of got that same vibe from the weed people. And my hunch was that if I could survive off making $2 an hour for like 5 years, then we'd be positioned to where I thought trust would be priceless. And it's taken 10 years, not 5, that I had to survive, but we're here, and it's kind of all starting to kind of come together.
Wow. And I say this as somebody who's, mid 40s, doing what I've been doing for a long time. I appreciate the hell out of your organic journey. I love the fact that you've been informed by each and every step of it, and the fact that you appreciate the authenticity that is the root of organic growth, because it's not just about, making it explode, but actually seeing that it has a strong foundation. It's everything that we're trying to do here on Dualistic Unity, that we don't go out of our way to impress people with our budget or hype or production, obviously, right? It's all about just the conversation, because that's what's making the impact. You doing what you do for you. So I really appreciate you being here on the show. I'll pass it over to Andrew now.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah. No, dude, that's an incredible journey. And I love because I'm just starting to, I swear to God, I'm just starting to get a sense of like, you described when you were younger how you were kind of like jack of all trades, just figured things out as you went, like, and, probably looked around and maybe your mom mentioned some stuff or how to do things. But I'm assuming a lot of it was, you just figuring things out.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm just starting to get a sense of that. Like I've spent most of my life kind of like on blueprint, societal blueprint trajectory, like, high school, college, job, do this for the next thing, more or
Yep.
less. And
Yep.
and so you're involved in a lot of stuff, from music, art, cannabis, and have been. And I was gonna ask like how you've sort of balanced it all or managed it all, but it sounds like you don't even know anything else besides just getting involved in things that you're interested in and figuring out, you know,
Yep.
how it's going to go as it goes. So, how's it been? Has there been like even a sense of a transition? Because based on your story, it sounds kind of like you've been doing what you're doing now your whole life.
Yeah. It's the same thing. I feel I just kind of let it happen. It sounds so like cliche or something, maybe, like whatever, but like I truly like the gut feeling to me is real, and I just see stuff out there and I love building stuff. But I used to think it was the idea and the idea was king and execution didn't matter as much. And now it took me a long time to realize it and even longer to admit it to myself that it's all about the execution, but I don't like to do that. I don't want to do the hard work. You know what I mean? It's like that's not fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. I want to just do the fun shit. I want to like do the cool, whatever, fun, cool stuff. And yeah, and I think with all the projects I've done, it's been like back to what you were saying, authenticity is like, especially with cannabis, like that's kind of all I care about right now, and it's been a detriment even like to me, like on a business level, like we could have made like so much more money or whatever and all these things, but it's like I grew up with my name's Rama. My mom's like a crazy hippie lady. Like we don't care about money, unfortunately for like the business side of my stuff, we don't care about it. So I try to find partners to help me do that, so all the ideas I have, like we have a trade show that I own called Hall of Flowers, and it's like a fucking awesome, amazing event. And I had the idea for 5 years before we even got it off the ground. It took me begging some partners to come in that are really amazing trade show experts, this guy Danny and Aaron, that come in to like really actually execute it. And it wasn't until like recently, even after it was like a master, like a monster hit, it until my friend Mishka, shout out Mishka Lunch Club, my lunch club buddy, he was like, Rama, like it's clear that together with Danny, you are better. If you have this thing, and it just was hard for to like even to like admit that kind of stuff. You know what I mean, kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't know if it answers the question, but I'm just kind of rambling, I think, at this point. But
I don't think so. I think that really does communicate a lot of the priority. And again, what I admire and respect is the fact that you continue on despite money not being the priority. And I get that. This is why I was a terrible life coach. Not that I was a terrible life coach, but I
yeah,
always told my clients, my goal is to never see you again. Like you should
yeah,
be okay, never coming back, right?
yeah,
Which is a terrible business model, but it's what makes the impact, especially when you start realizing that a
yep,
lot of this just comes down to this need
yep,
to control, to feel better about yourself all the time. And if you're not out there doing that, that's just like a tiny revolution in itself.
yep, yep.
But I do
Yeah,
have a question for you because we
yeah, good.
kind of touched on it before we started this conversation. Your transition recently to moving to where you currently are on the beach,
Yeah,
and the recognition that despite authenticity and despite remaining present as much as you could, you almost did develop kind of an identity of being a workaholic. And I would love to know a little bit more of how you came to recognize that, or how you came to the willingness to look at it and
mhm.
question it.
Yeah, yeah. So for sure, like I said before, we officially started this or whatever. Maybe you'll use it, but like, I was proud of being workaholic. I thought it was cool. I was wearing it as a moniker. I had it as my Instagram workaholic at this company, this company, this company, this company. Um, and in the meantime, like, I can't keep a girlfriend. I, am renting my house, not owning it. I'm like, not the healthiest weight wise, right? I don't want to say I'm overweight and have you guys be like, oh, you're fine. But like, I wish I weighed less or whatever, right? I have a great relationship with my friends and my family. That's like one thing that I don't want to sacrifice. But it was like I was just sacrificing all these things. And, it's like there wasn't like one moment that I was like, oh man, I'm like fucking up. But it was probably like I was watching something or reading something, and someone probably was like, workaholic is not good. You know what I mean? Like, and this is why. And you know, that's like, I'm just, but I was in LA, right? So even on Saturday and Sunday, when I want to turn off the work, it was almost impossible, because you go out and you see a thing, and then there's this guy that has a clothing line, and this thing here, like, my brain just wouldn't stop. So I was saying I was going to move to the beach for 20 years. And finally, my friend Mishka was like, yo, like, you might like this little beach thing just north of LA. It's in Ventura County, so just north of us, like an hour out of the city. And but pre-COVID and this kind of stuff, I don't think I could have done that, because like it's like a status symbol to like live in New York or live in LA and like run an agency or a business. You had to be there. Like, you have an agency in Ventura, like, I'm not hiring you. Like, what the fuck? I don't even know where that is. You know what I mean? Like, so, but then obviously COVID changed all that. The Zooms are acceptable, fully acceptable right now. Like, you're all good. You can be wherever you want, but I had this building that we were doing in LA that we bought before COVID. And, back to like applying the same stuff you said, it seems like you're kind of doing the same thing. So fucking 20 years ago in Boston, I had a little business called Initech, Initech, and it was from the Office Space movie. That was their office in Initech. But it was just me with a bunch of other of the most important music industry people in Boston. So it was a few other record labels. It was this woman, Jen Malone, who's like a major like music placement now, and she was a PR person then. It was Matt Galley and Matt Pike, huge booking agents now. Matt Galley's like represents the biggest artist in the world. So we just took all these music people, and I rented this, just like weed, you buy a big bag of it and sell some to your friends, So like I took this big office space, and then like we subdivided it up, but we shared resources. So like, oh, your intern's not here, you need someone to stuff envelopes with CDs, perfect. You need to borrow this, we got it. Like, it was just like all sharing. We had our own little keys, but it was like sharing. It was like a music, it was WeWork before that existed, So it was on the front page of the Boston Globe because it was such a cool thing back then. I was still doing it now. It's the same exact idea. I just now was doing it for cannabis brands instead of music. And but it grew so big, this like space concept, that we ended up buying a building in downtown Los Angeles before COVID, 67,000 square feet of a building, 7 stories. So a giant fucking building. And we started renting it out as like a cannabis kind of business complex. And then COVID came, crushed us like on every level, and everything, every lease we had gone, all the products we had, like the windows are not available anymore, all that shit, like construction was like devastated, right? So finally COVID passed, we got it open, whole revamp, and then it just wasn't really kind of working out with my partners, I guess, to say it nicely. I'm not a big fan of them, but it just didn't really work out, and it was such a big, ambitious project. But I look at it like it was like my Spruce Goose, if you know that, if you're a Howard Hughes person, like the big wooden airplane. Like we got it off the ground, maybe only for a few minutes, but you know what I mean? It's like still in a museum somewhere or whatever. So, but again, like I a lot of times I think thinking comes later, right? I just like start doing it. I'm not, and it's like for better or worse, I'm just like, but you said earlier something about like not afraid to fail. Like I say this thing all the time to my friends and partners and stuff, like fail fast, and people get scared, and I'm like, dude, like I've tried 100 things to even know that some of them didn't work, like, and like people take their whole life and they don't even take one risk, or they spend years, then they finally take the risk and it doesn't work and they're devastated because it's so precious, and I just think I'm skateboarding. You know, you fall down all the time, like way more than you land it, you fall. You know what I mean? So I think it was kind of a combination of that. You know, I went to a wedding recently, and it's very cute, but I was telling a story to somebody, and it's just like a normal Tuesday for me. Like I was with I went to a party the other night. I brought one of our brand owners, Jamie Feaster, with this brand Country that I work with, and we went to a music studio, and it was like the dudes from Guns N' Roses, Glenn Danzig from the Misfits, you know, a couple other huge musicians, Shooter Jennings, and like that's just a Tuesday night, you know, and like, but I was telling like someone that at a wedding, and they were like, "What? Like, hold on, honey, come over here. You got to meet this guy. He just met the guy from Guns N' Roses, you know." And it's like that's their whole. They tell that story. He's going to tell a story of how I met a guy from Guns N' Roses. I met a guy who met a guy from Guns N' Roses. Do you know what I mean? Like, but to us, it's just like New York. It's the same thing. LA. It's like, you know, these things just are there. I just am fortunate having like really great like mental health and positivity and excitement. Like my glass is not half full; it's overflowing, like always. You know, so I'm just so thankful that I have that, because I have some friends that really suffer from, you know, from mental health issues and depression and stuff, and I'm just so psyched that I can see that in almost anything, you know? So, yeah, very fortunate to have that. So I don't know, positive mental attitude, I guess.
Well, certainly an empowering one. I'm glad that you found your way out into the beach for sure, because it's nice to have that space. I know when I
Yeah.
was younger, I heard the buzz of everything happening all the time so much that I actually went out to the rainforest on Vancouver Island for 8 months and just lived in a shack I made myself and lived off the land. And so,
Wow.
oh yeah, no, I understand what it's like to just need some space to reprioritize and
Yeah.
recognize how little you actually need from other people or
Yeah.
the world as a whole,
Yeah.
right? But that said, you tend to be really involved with groups. Ultimately, you bring people together, you encourage them, you empower them, and this is something that we love to do in our groups. We have groups 5 days a week for the podcast, because it's not about us doing anything. We're not really doing anything other than facilitating the space.
Mhm.
Everybody comes together, and it's like watching intelligence in action. And it's so interesting to watch how other people can inspire one another. And if you just sit back
Yeah.
and let them know they can do that, it's like
Yeah.
miracles happen in doing so. And so, how has that journey been? Because as a very capable person, somebody who can, put their nose to the grindstone and get shit done, it can be often kind of hard to take a back seat and allow people to just venture out and spread their wings, make the mistakes, as it were. How did you come to that understanding over time, rather than it saying like it's a one-time thing? What are some of the experiences maybe that helped you learn that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's back to the band stuff, you know, like a lot of bands have revolving doors of like a drummer or a bass player, you know? So I always used like, I was with some pretty like major people last week in Las Vegas, and I think I'm really good at like bringing people together and like setting people up for the alley-oop. I can't dunk the ball, but I can give you the thing in the right spot, right where you want it, right, and kind of get it in or whatever, right? And or there's like always yes, I could play drums, but this person's way better. So like I don't need to be in the band. I'd rather have the band be awesome, you know. I think the thing in general, in lieu of financial, payment, what I've always looked for was like the fact that my hunches were correct, right? So seeing the kids sing along to a song was more. That was it. That was my payment. Like seeing the kids love it and worship it. Like the fact that Say Anything is 20 years later is going out celebrating this one record we did together, and there's going to be like thousands of kids singing these songs. It was like I was right. Perfect. That's all not that I need to be right, but I just was, it was like, like that's like the payment. I went to see Jimmy Eat World or Jim Solo a couple years ago in LA. He played at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and he's like playing acoustic. I'm like the last person in the back of the room, and there's like every single kid singing this song that I put out when I was like 21, like 25 years ago or whatever, 30 years ago. And it's like, it's just so awesome that like this is still a real thing, It's same thing with G-Pen. I talk about it all the time, like that, like the fact that I can go to a big trade show and still see my work there You know, I saw the team the other day, and one of the guys was like, I said, hey, you know, Jordan, there's someone put an empty cup over in your booth, because some people walking around the trade show, they just like in like your nice pristine area, that's like put your fucking can down on like where your shit, like where your electronics are, you know. And I said, hey, there's a can, and he goes, oh my god, and he goes and grab it, and he goes, dude, I'm crazy with the booth, and he goes, wait a second, I learned it from you. He's like, you're the reason I'm so crazy in the booth and the stuff, and you know what I mean. And I was just like, yeah, like it's cool to see like the advice pay off, you know. Like I care about that. Like I don't have clients right now, barely any, because the last client that I freaked out on, like mentally, not at them, but I was like, we're done, was this project. These guys are paying a lot of money, you know, tens of thousands of dollars a month retainer for like my brain, basically. And I present the thing, and it's incredible. The work is so good. And I'm like, the CFO is like, I don't know if I like this color. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. It doesn't matter, because it's science. It's really not in your opinion. And because it's like, we did all this work to figure out what, you know, what your brand is about. And, you know, and Johnson & Johnson has done this forever, and Kraft, they've built us down into these archetypes. And therefore you got to like kind of do this. This is why Diageo can have 12 vodkas that don't compete with each other, or how Volkswagen owns like every car company, and they keep them in business because like one's for this type of person and one's for this type of person, you know. And before, I just wanted the project, I just wanted the logo, I just do the packaging. And then it was like, well, if they're just gonna like, unless I can point to the packaging in years from now, or tell you guys the story of what's your client list, and I say it's G-Pen, they're still around now, it's like I built an awesome foundation with them. I care about that more than the money, just like the bands. Like I care about them still being able to do it versus, you know, getting a paycheck back in the day or something like that. Dude, I had an opportunity to work with, you know, Chris Carrabba is Dashboard Confessional. You know this band? Right? So before he became gigantic, he like begged to be on my label. And we walked around in Florida together, and he was like, I just need this and that and this. And I was just like, I could have, anybody else on the planet would have said yes. He was already fucking exploding. They would have been like, we'll figure it out, you know, fake it till you make it or whatever. And I was like, Chris, I don't think I can do it, because it was his life. And I was just like, I just don't know if I can Sherpa you up the mountain, because I've never been there before. So like, I'm going to say no. And he was like, what? You know what I mean? Like confused. But what if I did it and he didn't have the success? What if he wasn't the Spider-Man guy? You know what I mean? Because I fucked it up or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, I care so much about these artists and these people that like, I only want to work on shit that like people get it with me. You know, now I have like a really strict like client thing where it's like a physical trainer. I'm like, here's your diet, here's your exercise, here's all your shit. If you're not willing to do it, I'm not coming back. You know, and a lot of people don't want to do the work. A lot of brands don't want to, you know, so it's hard. But again, the beach has made everything much better, because then I'm just like, oh, that call was terrible, go walk on the beach. You know what I mean? This person doesn't get it, go walk on the beach. You know what I mean? Like this person's asking for changes or this thing, go for a walk. You know, where before it was like, I couldn't turn it off, you know, and now I'm realizing I needed that physical change to even help me change my mental a little bit, you know. But now I have a whiteboard in my living room again, somehow. So it's not working perfectly, you know.
There's balance to be found, you know,
Yeah.
the pendulum swings,
Yeah.
as it were.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying in terms of, you know, it's really nice to know that, you know, what I felt to be true ended up being true. And what I love is that you're looking at it as, you know, I want to be, you know, the best version of myself for these people. I want them to succeed. Where at the end of the day, it's also so you can live with yourself. Because at the end of the
Yep.
day, you're living with your own ability to
Yep.
either be authentic or not. And so the
Yep.
question, I guess, and I know this is kind of a leading question, is do you think that your willingness to be authentic, to make the suggestions that most people wouldn't make simply because they're afraid of how it would be perceived by others, is what allows you to make those right decisions, or to follow your intuition more gracefully, let's just say?
For sure. Yes. And I'm only saying that because people have said stuff to me like I was at this Champs trade show in Vegas, and this woman was like, oh, I know you, you're ruthless. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, I just heard you talk before about like yes and no and things. And I'm just like, I'm just very on the things that I know. I'm an expert in this stuff. And there's not many of us because cannabis isn't a real thing yet. It's like, so there's very few people that have done and what I've done. I consider myself like one of the best in the world at it, but it's like being the #1 tap dancer 50 years ago. Like, who cares now? You know what I mean? I need to be like the #1 cannabis person in a decade or whatever, you know what I mean? Which is when everyone else is in. So then it's a real competition, you know, it's like not just me, but like, I feel like I'm known for being opinionated and maybe stubborn, but mostly like opinionated, but it's like, but I'm just decisive. You know what I mean? Like I look at a painting and I'm like, I fucking love it. And this is why, or this is why it's good. Or, so, but I don't think it's bad. And again, if I'm coming from like the foundation of back to like what I said, I'm doing this new exercises, you know, we have the Hall of Flowers show recently. And before we launched this new one we're doing now next week, I sat with my partners and I brought us all the way back. I said, I know we have a style guide and we have websites, but like, let's go all the way back to like the beginning of what Hall of Flowers even is. What are we? You know, like, okay, it's a platform for people. Okay, perfect. It's this archetype. We're a creator, you know, here, like I brought it way, way, way back and I made sure everyone on the team knows what we're doing. That way, when we do have to make decisions and they're strong, they're very clear. You know, like a lot of times you get presented these opportunities and you don't know where you stand with them as a brand. So you're like, oh my God, this person wants to get a free product. And everyone's like, how many followers? And okay, send it. And it's like, but that's the worst person for your brand. I'd rather have like someone with barely any followers that's the perfect fit than just this thing. So if you know who you are, which most of the cannabis brands don't, you know, most brands in general don't, right? But if you know who you are, then it's really easy to have that strong like opinion and decisiveness of it. So that's how it is with me. You know what I mean? Like, so, but people look at it like people talk about it like it's negative. Like Rama's going to not like it. Rama says this, Rama like says, fuck that. And I'm like, I don't even know what's coming out of my mouth. To me, that means like, no, thank you. But I say fucking no fucking way, you know, but I just hear it as no, thank you, please. What's next? You know what I mean? So anyway, if that
but you're surrounded by people who tend to take things personally. And so rather than just listening to what you're saying, they're listening to what it might mean about them. And so I get that to a very large degree.
Sure. Ray, do you work at the radio station or something? Because you have the best voice. You need to monetize this voice, buddy. It is really good.
That.
It's like if I do this, like the closed eyes, like it's like I met a voiceover guy recently, Brent. Shout out to Brent. He's like has a whole career in like a business and a thing and a family. It's like it's unbelievable what this guy's doing with his voice. Not saying that you have the Brent voice, you know, he's upper echelon, but you know, I think you should look into it, you know.
Well, thanks. I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
He does for now. He's got a podcast, so he'll hang with that
podcast. No, it's very important to have the good voice in the podcast.
No, but I feel like I'm learning so much just from this episode right here, because it sounds like you just have faith in yourself, like you just trust yourself, and not in like a, you know, because people talk about trusting themselves and having faith in themselves and all of that, but really it's not even about like a thing that you do. It's almost like a thing that deep down you understand just from going through stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, and you've just gone through so many things and done so many things that it's not even like, oh, I think this is I'm going to think about all this stuff. It's just like, no, I've been through a bunch. I've been through a lot. I've made a lot of decisions. I've made a lot of choices for brands. Some have worked, some haven't, but I've learned each and every time from the things that I've chosen. And I think that goes probably hand in hand with, you know, your failing fast sort of mentality. Is the quicker you get to that, the more you're just doing things. And I think so many people can get caught in not wanting to, like being so involved in themselves, basically, or how they're perceived or how they perceive themselves, thinking about themselves. They can't even make that first step to jumping into something. And
yes.
And so it seems like with your sort of life and experience, it's been more of a prioritization of your experience than how your experience is going or how it may be perceived.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people tend to prioritize the opposite, which is fascinating, but as you get more and more self-involved and focus on yourself, there's almost a like a pull away from your experience. And it's more like, like on Instagram, the whole joke is like you want your life to look like it's fun versus it actually being fun. But when it's actually fun and the experience that you're having, you're seeing that it's, oh, this is coming from me. This isn't how I'm not in the situation that I should be in or I want to be in. It's just, it's being expressed through me. And so it's, I don't even know if I necessarily have a question, but
No, it's great.
it's really
Exactly
cool
right.
to, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool to hear you guys even. I've done a lot of podcasts, but it's just like a question and an answer. It's cool hearing your guys like feedback on like what it's more of a conversation we're having versus like a question Q&A thing, and I think it's really cool because I do this thing with Uber drivers where it's like my thing I've been doing the past like year, where Lyft driver technically, because I don't do Uber anymore because Lyft said Lyft's better or whatever, but where I'm like, it's LA. So I'm like, what else are you working on besides driving Uber, And they go, oh, well, like, I want to be a writer. And I'm going, okay, cool. Like, and I don't tell them I know anything. I'm just like, do you write a blog or anything? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, what are you trying to write? A book. And I'm like, have you written any short stories? Well, no. And I'm like, okay, so you just want to jump the Grand Canyon, but you've never ridden a motorcycle. Like, okay, cool. And then they go, oh, and I'm like, what you should do is just like, start on a blog, like, you know what I mean? And and then I've had, not even joking, like 3 Uber drivers have pulled over for real and been like, can you tell me, Cole, can I take some notes? And I'd be like, for sure. And then I follow them on Instagram and I see it working. This is going to sound so dumb. I tell the story to all my friends. They're going to be like, why do you tell this stupid story? So I live in this little teeny town and there's one bar, right? And restaurants, a bar, like a little pubby thing. There's a couple other little restaurants. There's no stoplights. It's just like this little thing. Downtown is like 4 buildings, right? It's awesome. And I walked by Monday night. I was leaving the convenience store, walking by, and I look in, and there's this guy in the bar, and there's not one human in the whole entire bar. It holds 200 people. There's not one person there besides this one guy. It's Monday night. This is like a couple months ago. And I was like, hey, man, are you open? And he's like, yeah, because I don't know anyone. I'm not going to try to like go to this bar, but there's 0 people in there. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll go in and get a beer. So I've never eaten there before. I never really go in. And he's like, yeah, please come in. Oh my God, please. And I was like, okay, I go in and he's like, you want a beer? And I was like, sure, I got a beer. Monday Night Football's on. And I say, why is there no one in this bar? I don't understand, like at all. Not even one person, not one. And I was like, I don't understand, And he goes, I don't know, man. Like, I'm trying to do this Monday Night Football thing. So I go online and I go to his Instagram and it says they're closed on his Instagram. And I go, well, do you have access to your social media? And he says, well, my wife does it. I said, well, do you know that on Google, here's Google and it says you're closed. And here's Instagram, So like, you probably want to, and you haven't posted in forever. And like, it's a bar and I know you don't have much to talk about, but like I'm like, you should be hitting up your tequila company and saying, hey, we want to do fucking margarita night. Can we give us some stuff? Can we help create some energy? Can you post some shit so I can repost it? Hey, this, hey, that. Now they're going off. I swear, I saw him when I walked by the other day. He goes, Rama, oh my God, thank you so much. We're doing all the stuff, blah, 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 And again, it's like seeing the kids sing along at the show or like seeing the success. Like, so I don't give a shit if you're paying me 50 grand a month. If you're not fucking listening to me, it's like a trainer being like, dude, I told you can't eat McDonald's every day. And they're like, yeah, but we're paying you. And it's like, dude, but I don't care about the money. It's like, not that. I want to like do awesome fucking shit. And I want to make sure my energy is like, spent on making sure that shit grows. So I'm telling all my friends about this little bar and they're like, you need to calm down. And I'm like, dude, but you have no idea. Like, you should see, like, I walked by the other day, it was packed. And I was like, there we go. Like, and now, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like these little things. So, no one takes free advice or whatever they say, or free advice isn't a whatever thing or whatever, but, yeah, I just want to like see people reach their full potential,
And I think that's probably why they listen to you. I think that's why you come across the way you do, because again, it changes. If you need to tell somebody something, they immediately block you out because you're not really listening to them at all. It's not about them, it's about you.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the fact that you know, your impact in that way is something that you've cultivated again over time, but you enjoy the process of watching things grow. I have this secret desire to grow bonsai trees in my old age, and
Oh yeah,
it's just because there's a certain level of patience and acceptance
yeah,
that the thing's going to grow the way it wants, and you're
yeah.
just kind of guiding it,
Mhm.
right? Rather than forcing it. And I appreciate the sentiment behind that. But it's interesting because you were saying the format here on the podcast isn't really a podcast, it's just kind of a discussion. And it's because honestly, I've gotten over the idea that I know what's best for the listener, right? So I just put the space here. We have the conversation. We're informed by you. You're informed by us. The listeners picking whatever they can
Yeah,
out of it.
yeah,
And what I find is that there's a magic in that. Like it really does work out better than you might want it to work out, because it's like your faith in yourself is reflected in your faith in others.
mm, yep, yeah, yeah. I like that. And how long have you guys been doing? I looked at a little bit research, of course, and I looked at it again right before we jumped on. But how long have you guys been doing the podcast?
Since the end of September 2021.
Holy shit! What
Yeah, we
episode
had,
is this going to be?
2.5 years.
well, we have a number of different types of episodes. This is a
Okay,
classic episode. So this is
okay.
season 6, episode
This,
23.
this is
But
a
we have
being
over
this is
400
being
episodes.
high.
Oh, this is Being High. Sorry.
Yeah.
Different series
Yeah.
entirely. So
13.
we have
Sorry.
There's so
Dualistic
many.
Unity, and this is episode 13 of Being High. But yeah, we have over 400
Episode
episodes.
13. Just saying, not trying to look into it. Guess my lucky number.
Nice.
Of
Just
course.
saying.
See? Timing's always perfectly
reason.
appropriate.
13 was my number. When I had the distro, 13's always been my number, and it's always followed me in some weird way. And when I did the distro deal, they were like, "Here's your vendor number." When it was like all this work, and I was number 13 of the vendor, and I was like, "Guys, you have no idea. Like you have like this is so good." So of course, it's episode 13. Of course it is. It would either be that or 31. But yeah, 13 would be the first one. That's cool. Yeah, man. I mean, like, I don't know.
I appreciate that you recognize that there is a certain rhyme and reason to this. Like what you just communicated is deeply telling in terms of not, and I hesitate to use the word spiritual perspective, but rather your perspective that there's more going on here than just, you know, a body in the universe that's disconnected and whatnot. So I really appreciate that. And I'd like to discuss it a little bit more, but let me tell you quickly why I appreciate it so much. Because I've been looking at myself as basically just the awareness of reality kicking around with this idea of myself that kind of keeps me separate from everything. And I've known that for so long that my daughter was born on summer solstice, the brightest day of the year, and it was Father's Day. So I became a father on the
Wow.
brightest day on
Yeah.
Father's Day. I just
Yeah, it's
loved
amazing.
the timing.
Yeah. Rick Rubin, obviously, I didn't steal his beard, but I don't know if you follow him or his book or whatever, but like, he was a hero always, right? And he had something in the book. I'm reading it now, and it was like, like the ideas, you're just a vessel for the idea. It's going to come through. If you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And it's like, that's why people think great minds think alike, is because the idea is ready to come out. You know what I mean? And like, whatever you want to believe doesn't matter. But like, to me, it's like, I like look at signs from the universe, if like I'm forcing something and I try something 3 different things and it just it just seems like, what am I, like, I'm way forcing this, or like, like I don't do like a what's that called? Like a vision board. I've never done that kind of thing or whatever, but I have experienced many times where I put something out in the universe and then boom, it happens. And it's like some stuff happens like an hour later, like door close, open. Some stuff I'm like a big decision, and like an hour later, I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, like what? Like out of nowhere, this just came up, like, and so it's hard to not like, it's be like, I'm running out of gas, I'm running out of gas. And then you see a gas station and it's like open and you're like, oh my God, what? Like, how do you not, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like that feeling, whether it's like put there for a reason or whatever is different, but like, it's like that, it feels like it is. So I told you, I went to San Francisco for the weekend, and I literally for John LaCroix to make me a resume. And then he's like, you should just stay in the guest room and we'll start a company. And I was like, cool. Awesome. My friends went to my house and boxed up my shit and mailed it to me. I paid rent still for 7 months in LA because we were like, maybe we'll work on it this weekend. We didn't even know if it was going to be a company. And we got a client months and months and months and months later. And I was like, guess I'm staying, and it was just like, but we never made a plan for it. You know what I mean? So again, like, my goal isn't to like build something crazy and exit and do the thing. Like, I don't even want anything. You know what I mean? Like, as I'm growing older now, I'm like, oh, like, I'd rather own the house than rent the house or things like this. But I don't have a family. I don't have kids. I don't have like a wife, you know? So it's like, I don't have to like, I'm not stuck having to like generate enough income for it to be like to survive. You know what I mean? I'm just good. My shack's not expensive up here. You know, like, it's, you know, there's there's leaks and stuff. It's like very cheap little shack I'm in. You know what I mean? But again, you know, I'll be on the beach in 10 minutes after this phone call, you know? So, but
Does the
you know,
trick.
everyone's just doing different stuff. There's actually something you guys should check out. It's called Where Good Ideas Come From. Michael Johansson. And there's a really great little video, whiteboard video of like a 5-minute. It's unbelievable. Anyone watching this, if you fucking stayed this long, go watch Where Good Ideas Come From. That's like one of my that and Quieting the Lizard Brain with Seth Godin. I don't know if you know Seth Godin, Lizard Brain, but those things fucked me up. You know, I love Tipping Point, right? Of course, like, but then the next one he did, I forget what it's called. That fucked me up too, because it was like, oh, if you're born this time, you're supposed to be creative. It made you like not as special or seem or whatever, you know? And I was like, fuck Malcolm Gladwell. But like, you know, like these things like Lizard Brain, now that I know that there's something in my head that goes, don't do that, you know, like, right, like, and it's built there to make you not get hit crossing the street. That's why people they pause on stuff. I don't know if I should post it. I don't know if I should do the song. I work so hard on it. It's because they don't realize there's like a thing in there that says, don't do it. And now as soon as you know that's there, then it's like, okay, then it's easy to like say, fuck it, jump, you know what I mean? Or whatever kind of thing, you know?
Absolutely. Actually, that's a really interesting point. This is something that dawned on me a couple of years ago, just before I met Andrew, because that's a long story. I'll get into that in a second. But the lizard brain, the whole fight or flight thing, right, is
Yeah.
basically meant to protect us physically.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we actually feel like we're being physically threatened when somebody just threatens our idea of ourself.
Yeah.
So it's like the lizard brain doesn't understand that the idea of us isn't us. So
Yeah.
it's protecting us with the same ferocity.
Yeah.
That's fucked. Like, if you don't know that's happening, you don't even know to watch out for that shit. You end up defending yourself in a way where you don't even realize you're not the you that you're defending.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend, he actually just passed away a couple of days ago, unfortunately. And he texted me like not long ago, send me that monkey brain video again. And I'm like, monkey brain video, gross. I thought it was like some Faces of Death shit. And he's like, no, that thing that you showed me with like overthinking it. And I'm like, oh, lizard brain for sure. Here it is, you know? But yeah, like when I play that for people, they're like, oh, fuck. Like, you know that there's a speed bump now or whatever, you know? And then Where Good Ideas Come From, Michael Johansson, you know, essentially that's why I use the word hunch, right? It's like, we have all these hunches, but he breaks down every invention of all time kind of, and all the best shit is like groups of people coming together with their ideas to build something, usually not for profit, but just like for the good of like the world or whatever, the community. Back then it was like for art's sakes or whatever you'd say. So yeah, that's what a band is, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't really get in a band being like, I'm going to be rich. You know what I mean? Yes, you kind of want it, but like that, you don't get that far. Like, you need to really want to fucking do the work, play the music, learn you know how hard it is to fucking play guitar? Not an easy thing to do. You know what I mean? So you really got to like put the work in, you know?
For sure.
So.
Yeah. No, I tried for a couple of years, and I went the superficial route, looked up the YouTube videos and how to do that instead of actually learning the scales and whatnot. But I kind of like to think, and admittedly, I did have the thought, so funny, like 30 minutes ago, kind of feel like I'm talking to Rick Rubin right now. With the beard played into it.
I'll take
but
it as a compliment. He's the hero. I did meet Rick Rubin. I did a band called International Noise Conspiracy. And the singer and the guitar player in the band were also in a band called The Refused, or just Refused, which is like an unbelievably important punk band, top 5-10 punk bands of all time. The Bear just used one of their songs in like the final episode. It's like a amazing song. You probably heard it. Anyway, Refused, unbelievable band. They had a band called International Noise Conspiracy. I did their first record called Smash It Up in America. They brought the Hives over on tour. At that point, no one had heard of the Hives. I also did the Hives records at that point, 2002, I think. And then they signed to Rick Rubin's label. And they're like, yo, we're in LA. We're in the studio recording with Rick Rubin. Do you want to come over? And I was like, my fantasy. So I show up, and Rick's exactly what you expect. He has his own lounge chair. He's just like lying there, whatever, like doing the thing, being like more bass. That's like what he said. And work on the guitar or work on the keyboard or something. And that's it. It was hours of me just sitting him do. He like said 4 words. And but like he started out so much more like grounded and spiritual and even, not that this is a thing, but financially much more successful so early on. He was still in college when he was having hit records, right? So like he's had a lot of money for a long time. And with that, you get the perks, you get the healthier everything if you want it. You know what I mean? Like I was looking at cold plunges recently, and this is going to sound so psycho, but I'm just scrolling down because there's so much fake news about it or whatever, maybe, right? And I see like something that has like Rick Rubin's name on it a few pages in, and I click on it, and it's a PDF like order of his actual cold plunge. And I was like, what? Like, this is so weird. Like, this is just online. I found this Rick Rubin cold plunge thing. I might have been Googling it actually, because I think Rick Rubin and Joe Rogan were doing it. So that would make more sense. I was like, Rick, and then so a couple pages in, I was like, this PDF like invoice from the back end of a company's just online, just has the PDF on there. And it's like his house in Maui. And it's like the sickest Ferrari cold plunge setup of all time. And it's like, he doesn't even live in Maui. He lives in, Malibu. So, so like that kind of like world, like he's just been at his peak of it for so long, I guess, that he's like transcended being a human almost, you know what I mean? He's like truly like just a floating beard or whatever, you know what I mean? Kind of thing, where I'm like still like figuring out shit, so.
But enjoy that while it lasts.
I think that's part of the whole process, because I wonder about, someone like Rick Rubin, because I've seen him on podcasts, I've watched him on videos, and there'll be comments and people talking about how he doesn't have the accredited sort of stuff, despite doing so many things. He's just like, oh, what does he do? What does he really do? And I think a lot of it is just like faith in himself and like deeply, deeply, deeply trusting that gut feeling. And your description of him hanging out, just saying like more bass, guitar, it's almost just like an instinctual
That's right
response.
It's how kind of what we talked about. It's how I feel with like the branding and some of this stuff now, but again, he's 30 years into it with just music. Cannabis, I'm 10 years in. So, but that's my hope, is that I'm there, because right now my opinion is still like, it's just your opinion. I had a fucking client go send us an email after we did a bunch of work. Go, hey guys, my daughter is in college for branding and marketing, and she has some her and her class have some comments on your work. And I was just like, no, they don't. Like, no, they don't. So I'm just, and I was like, and by the way, we're done. Like, I'm not renewing the contract. We're out of here. Like, if your cousin can make the $500 logo, please go do it. Because I'm not making your logo till we have months of work. Like, literally, like I don't even start. You can't even, how do you even know what your logo should be if you don't know who the fuck you are as a company? Right? You know what I mean? It's like Nike got real likey with the swoosh, but even that was deep. You know what I mean? And they refined it and they built the whole world around it, but like now it's like these brands, like, the next 100-year brands are getting built now. Like these brands, this is a big opportunity for these companies. This is like the Anheuser-Busch's and the Coors, Molson Coors, like all this stuff happening again, This is like, so I understand that a lot of these cannabis brands don't want to like put in a ton of the work to make it awesome because they're just figuring life out. But like, if you do all this extra work and you spend the time building the most ultimate foundation, everybody in the entire company that you ever add for the rest of your life will know why they're getting out of bed every day and what to do, why they're there. You know what I mean? And in most of these companies, if you interviewed all 30 people at the company, what do you guys do? What are you here to do? Everyone would give you a completely different answer. You know what I mean? So if you can just unify everything from the beginning, that way, when you're running, you know what to do. That's why I feel so confident in what I'm doing. And it's a yes or a no, yes or a no. And my Green Streets project, right? I have Wallflowers, but Green Streets, our thing, my like motto, not motto, my underlying like secret message to my internals, that I did this exercise myself. It's to protect the authenticity of cannabis. That's why when you said authenticity earlier, I loved it, because clearly that I'm doing a good job if you're getting that without me saying it, right? So now that being known, and that took months to work on, hundreds of hours to come up with that, like, and it's a whole 50-page thing, whatever, blah, blah. I'll show it to you. It's nuts. But that's like what spit out at the end, kind of putting all this work in. Now, how do I use it, right? Like, I have a team that does events and these people that bring ideas and things. And I'm like, and I had this woman that worked for me who was amazing, Nicole, and she was like, I'm not sure what events you like. I can't tell. Oh my God, like this one seems to, and I was like, oh, just does it do this? Does it protect the authenticity of cannabis? Because if it does, I'm in. And she goes, what? And I was like, yeah, that's it. And then after that, it was just like, boom, okay, it does that. She doesn't have to even talk to me. I don't even need to, because it's the mission. But most companies, it's like and that's not a tagline. That's not like just do it. That's like what you're there to do as a whole company. You know what I mean? So if you can really align all that, to me, I think you're unstoppable if you even have a little bit of success in cannabis now, so.
Agreed. I find one of the problems with the cannabis industry, because I was working with soil amendments and whatnot for a while, is just that it's almost like contradictory to the mentality that the plant is trying to teach us in so many ways, because we're focused on that profit, we're focused on the business, and the plant is trying to remind you, like, be here. This is where shit's happening, and this is where you have the most influence. And so I appreciate that what we're seeing is almost like, a separation of the wheat from the chaff. All of these profit-centric businesses are really having a problem, and it's because they're just trying to sell the product instead of, as you said, building that foundation, which is based on the work they do on themselves.
Yeah, look at Marley Natural. Marley Natural, biggest budgets in the world. They own Leafly. They like privateer, right? I don't know if they've broken up by now, but this is years ago. And they came and they sat with us at Green Street and they said, we're launching and here's our thing. And we're going to do this party and we're going to spend like $500,000 on a party. And I was like, well, what else are you doing? Like, who's going? Well, these people. I'm like, well, can I invite some people to the party? Well, no, it's full of like the family and friends. And I was like, can I go to the party? They're like, oh, sorry, we don't really have a ticket. And I was like, who from weed is going to this party? You're spending $500,000 marketing, like launching the brand, right? There's a point of the launch, like just to do something, just to get to the moon, not just fucking explode, right? So I was like, well, you should spend $400,000 on the party, because that's still probably a cool party. I think, I can do a lot for that. And obviously, and then spend like $100,000 with like throughout the community. You know what I mean? Like, these booths aren't expensive. Being at these events, it's like you can get really cool shit. Our friends that do awesome events, and it's a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 to do a show. I mean, I think I would suggest that than just like spend it all at one thing. And they didn't do it, and then they didn't support anything, and they thought it was Bob Marley. What do we need to do? Everyone loves Bob Marley and cannabis, and it's a fucking laughingstock. It's a joke brand. You know what I mean? And it's Bob Marley, and it didn't work. So like, what is everyone else talking about? Like, what are we, you know what I mean? Like, you got to be in the trenches. That's why again, back to the band stuff, back to this stuff, I knew it was going to be this way. It was like, ask any operator, any cannabis brand that's a real brand that I've ever worked with, ever, which is like probably 100 of the best people on the planet. I'll bet you they're like, dude, Rama always took care of us. You know what I mean? Like, always. You know what I mean? Dude, I was doing Beats by Dre at the same time as doing Wonder Bread. Beats by Dre was paying us $90,000 a month. Wonder Bread was not paying that, or even a fraction or close to anything like that. But it didn't matter, because it's not based on that. It's like, Wonder Bread needed the help. We believed in it. I wanted to do it. I thought he was amazing. We're still free. Literally texted me while we're on the call. It's like, that was 10 years ago. You know what I mean? And now still we can talk, because I knew it was going to be about like the industry as it grows. I saw another thing. I did do fashion a little bit, and I saw some cool stuff in fashion. And in fashion, I saw interns at fashion brands run major fucking fashion brands 3 years later. Like, they were like, I'm a designer, I do this, and the fucking shit explodes. Multiple times I've seen it. Big stuff. And that's going to happen here. Like, you could get in right now, an intern at a good company, and learn everything, because everyone is so small, right? And then in a year or 2, 3 years, you could fucking be running some insane shit. You know what I mean? So like, I look at everybody like they're like could be the big person. I've never been like, oh, that's the person and I'm this, you know what I mean? Dude, when I go to the events, I sign in as janitor. What's your title? I write janitor. Always. And people don't even bother me. They're like, oh, that's weird. Like, he's like the janitor of like Green Street. Okay. And they like just keep going, you know what I mean? Because like, It's like, dude, like, anyway.
That's awesome. And it
even
goes
you guys, even your guys were like, I want to do the podcast. I was like, fuck yeah. And I don't, it doesn't matter. I don't know the viewership of the stuff because you could be Jimmy Eat World, right? You know what I mean? Like you could be System of a Down maybe with your UJ, but Shavo with the hair, same haircut and the beard. But
I'll take it.
yeah, for sure, me too. He's the best actually. But it's like, yeah, this is just getting started. I'm excited. My partner is Gary Vaynerchuk and a bunch of the stuff too, right? Gary V. And he's the same way. When he was like, I'm into it. That story is kind of interesting. I was with him. We had Green Street going. We had the game, the rapper, and a few other cool projects and other client work, of course. And I was obsessed with Gary forever. I met him 12, 13 years ago. And I was hitting him up since, like weed stuff, not weed stuff, corporate stuff. He's coming to LA. I sent him a text. I was representing 2 Chainz as well at the time. And I said, hey, I represent these rappers. I know you love hip hop. Do you want to meet him? And he was like, yes. And he was like, come to this address. So I brought Game over there. We're talking with Game about like corporates. I helped Game at Interscope. They were a client. That's how I met him before we did weed stuff. So I was like, yeah, we did the record together at Interscope. It was really successful. I did like some fun marketing stuff for him. The record was already done and like musically. And then at the end of the whole meeting, and I've been trying to get with Gary for forever, Game says something about weed stuff. And he goes, weed stuff. And all his whole crew is like scratching record. And I was like, oh no, they're going to kick us out of the meeting. And he goes, tell us about the weed stuff. And I was like, what? You like it? And he's like very interested in the space. And I was just like, this whole entire time, I'm like pretending I don't even, you know what I mean? And then meanwhile, this is the thing you're interested in. I thought it was going to scare you away. And then he was like, I love it. Keep going. So like that was enough. Like, I was like a little boat lost out in the ocean kind of, at that point. And then when he was like, dude, you're killing it. Keep going. Just go, go, go. Now that obviously back to the first questions were like, how do you get the feeling? That obviously was a huge part of it. But I don't think about Gary like all the time. It's like, he's just like been anything we've ever needed, he gives us. But I look at him like the genie in the bottle kind of thing, versus like, just like having to hound him for shit all the time. You know what I mean? So that's why I forget sometimes that he's even my partner and stuff, But
again, I think that's reflective of exactly how little you rely on other people and how much the buck just kind of stops with you. So as much as you can reach out to these people, it's not necessarily your first thought, right? Because you're already doing your own thing.
Yeah, again, skateboarding, it's a solo thing, like for better or worse. I'd never played team sports, I was skateboarding thing. It's always something too where like you have to look directly at the ground, like right where you are, because it's a pebble or whatever. But then you also have to be like a block down the road. So it's very different way to look at the world, right? So I feel like that's what I do here. I'm like looking at like daily, like my daily list is psycho, but then I have like my big overall list as well, so I'm really kind of doing both. So I'm trying to like, because I want to make sure that, but the good news is I know where I want to be, right? Again, a lot of people don't have the foundation or they don't know what their real goals are. Like they want to make money, but that's not like a goal for the business, you know what I mean? So it's like a result,
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Well, it's like, and then what? Right? Where's that going to ultimately go?
Yeah.
For
Dude, we met so many years ago. When I don't really do client stuff anymore, like I said, but we'd meet these people that like won a license, spent millions of dollars with zero plan of what they're going to do afterwards. And I'm like, well, what? And they go, we have no idea. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what, you hadn't thought about it at all? Like what you might happen if you spend millions of dollars on this thing, And then they just don't. And since they haven't even thought about it, now the idea of like taking months to make this exercise, like takes months to make a logo. That's crazy. My cousin can make one this weekend. And I'm like, perfect. Like, that's great. We are not aligned. You know what I mean? Like you don't have any idea what's going on, So, whatever, but there's a lot of great branders and marketers in cannabis. I'm excited about the stuff that's happening in it. I love that everyone, like all like the real operators, like the real, brand owners, they're like tired, but it seems like there's like a little uptick right now where California the past couple of years has been a little harder. Past year, it's been harder, but Yeah, I don't know, whatever, blah blah blah, weed stuff,
Yeah. Oh, this has been an incredible chat, dude. This has been a
Oh,
blast. Like
okay,
it
good.
really is a lot of fun to connect with people who are just living their lives. And I think, before you mentioned being a workaholic, but I think that whole term even just comes from this idea that like work is something that's entirely separate from living your life. And like you're not really fully living your life when you're working. But, you think back years and years of tribal society, even they didn't have like work and play and life. It's like all the things they did. Like I know you build furniture and whatnot. Like that was work, but it was functional and it was involved and it
Yeah,
fulfilled, their experience. And it's a part of your experience. And when we have these, ideas of what life should be or what we should be doing or societal ideals and whatnot, it kind of slowly and slowly diminishes our experience moment to moment. And so
yeah.
it's been a blast chatting with you, man, because you
Cool.
seem like someone who certainly takes advantage of life and just,
Yeah,
if you were
yeah.
awakened.
You should see my sea glass collection that I got going on over here.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I have to go to a second cup now because I have so many sea glasses in the first one that I now have a second one started. It's only been a year. It's like a good calendar kind of. But I told you I'm like, this is like my main priority was collecting sea glass like this past year, and which is I'm doing really good at it. And there's no money there, obviously, right, to be made, but like it's very exciting. And the other day, these like women on the beach kind of walked over to me, these like two older women, and retired ladies, and they were like, we see you bending down a lot over here. And I was like, oh yeah. They're like, what do you got? And I did like the thing where you pull your pocket out, but you like still hold it a little bit. And the lady's like, tax. And she like fake went to grab like some of my sea glass, you know what I mean? And now they chirp me when they see me because they're like, what do you got? You know what I mean? Because they're like also out hunting for glass, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm building my new crew up here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with the with that world. But yeah, man, I just want to have fun. Honestly, I just think it's like there's a way to do both, and because I don't need a lot, financially or whatever, right? So it's like I don't have to be a doctor. So why do I want to be stressed and freaking out all the time? You know what I mean? And yeah, and I want to help people. So
It definitely comes across for sure. And regardless of how well you might be doing financially now, I get the impression that you'd continue to do this regardless. That's very
oh, for
much the
sure.
case.
But that's the thing is like if I hit the lot, I don't like play the lottery, but if I hit it, I would just do the same stuff I'm doing. I'd for sure get the Rick Rubin house, like for sure, like the cool white one on the beach view. I don't want, like, but like that's different. I was still gonna do the same thing, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, man. Well, you guys, if you ever make it out to Hall of Flowers, please let me know. If you come out to the LA area and you want to hang or whatever, let me know. I am coming to New York a bunch, and I'm there even later this month. I'm hanging out with my friend Ben and another guy doing weed stuff there. So maybe if you want to meet up, we can do that. That's on the 21st. I think it's a Thursday. During the day, I'm just kind of kicking around, and then we'll be up in Toronto for Hall of Flowers this summer. I don't know where you are. You're not in Toronto though, right? You said Vancouver, or but
Yeah,
yeah, the
I'm in the
opposite,
Vancouver
basically.
Island area for
Yeah,
sure.
Vancouver
But
Island. Yeah. Well,
funny you
you need.
should mention it. We actually have a retreat coming up in California in April.
Oh,
So we're going to be
amazing.
down in the LA area. So perhaps we can
Yeah,
hook up with you there.
yeah, for
That
sure.
would be
Please.
great. I
Yeah,
wanted to say something in appreciation before we wrap this
sure.
up because I find, and this is something we talk about a lot, the less seriously you take yourself, the more you're able to see the limitless potential in everyone else. And regardless of how much it seems that you have accomplished in your life, regardless of how much you have facilitated change in your life, you certainly don't seem to put yourself on a pedestal in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's why you see everybody having the same potential as you. And so, as somebody who has worked to be able to see the same thing, I really appreciate your path and I appreciate you sharing it with us and the listener today. And I hope that we can have you back on the show and even hook up with you in California when we're down there.
Sure. Yeah. Dude, guys, you guys seem super cool. Great voice again. Down to do anything that you guys want. Let me know. I'm here. Andrew, if you want to hang in New York, I'm down to meet up or whatever. We'll
For
be over
sure.
in Tribeca, as I took me 10 minutes to remember the name of it, for a bit probably. And yeah, that's it. Let's keep in touch. You know what I mean? I'd love to do more stuff or tell you people that you guys should have on here or whatever. And perseverance, just gonna keep going. Dude, Jimmy World basement shows for years. Now they are fucking playing like the fucking finals, football, halftime show thing or whatever, I'm not a big sports guy, but cool guys. Well, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
And let me know
to our
when this comes
listener,
up or whatever. And obviously when you put this out, and I'll promote it and tag it. I don't know what the design is. I hate I hate photos. I don't really have photos of myself at all. I usually use a photo of Larry Bird that I send to people. South by Southwest, I think, still has it on their website, not knowing it's not me. But if you need something, let me know. And obviously I'll help promote it or whatever.
we really appreciate
Admittedly,
it.
yeah, for the thumbnails, I usually just take screenshots of this
Yeah,
right here.
cool.
Again,
Yeah,
low
perfect.
budget.
Yeah.
But if you want to send me a picture of Larry Bird, I'll throw that on there.
No, hell no. No, don't overthink it. Like, you just like do it. Like, again, back Gary V, right? If you asked his opinion, like, if I'm a musician, what should I do? He'd be like, put out a song every day. And he's like, what I can't, the studio. He goes, just doesn't matter. Play it on a fucking cardboard box and hit record on your iPhone and put it out. You know what I mean? Like shots on goal kind of thing, I think, is a lot of this usually, you know what I mean? So just do it, keep going, so.
That is a perfect way to wrap up this episode. To the listener, thank you so much for joining us. Just jump in, do the reps. The rest works out on its own.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thinking comes later.
Well said.
Amen.
Okay, cool
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
See you later.